Hello everybody, I'm Lobaroda and today we're doing something that I'm looking forward to for weeks now. We are doing an Arknight Nuzlocke. And for everybody who doesn't know what a Nuzlocke actually is, it comes from Pokemon. I don't know if it originated there or if it's just something that's very big there, but basically it makes the game harder by giving more and more rules on the normal gameplay. In Pokemon it means you may only catch one Pokemon per route, and if it dies or faints it's considered dead, and you actually get a very nice and interesting challenge out of this. So my Arknights Nuzlocke looks as follows. First of all, I play through a whole chapter, from the first to the last mission in order. The only missions that I will ignore are tutorials because I can't select my team there anyway. The second rule is every operator can only be deployed once. So that means if I use my Silver Ash, for example, in the very first stage of the chapter, I cannot use him for the rest of the chapter. He's out. The third rule is if an operator is killed or retreats, he cannot be redeployed in the stage. I cannot use him in the next stage anyway, and during the stage I cannot use redeployment even if I wanted to. The only exception for this are summons and stage items, since I count them as consumables basically and not as operators. As the first chapter where I want to try this challenge, this Nuzlocke challenge, I picked chapter 2, Separate Hearts, because the prologue is not really something interesting to play, and chapter 1 is a bit easy in terms of it doesn't have that many stages and there's not much of a challenge there to go through this. But chapter 2 actually has 22 stages. So even with a pretty good roster, 22 stages means you need a lot of operators to get through this. And you can't use your top operators through all of the challenges or all of the stages, obviously. So the amount of operators I have at the point of recording is 127. So I have to play around the stages and see what kind of operators I need and try to go with a minimum amount of operators possible. Especially since I don't have 22 medics or 22 vanguards or 22 defenders, so I need to figure out a way to play around DP, heal and blocking. And I'm doing this completely blind. Like, I counted the stages, but I didn't play any of those recently. I haven't tried this before. I don't know what the best strategy is going to be. I'll just go with what I feel like and see where I end up. As you will see throughout this video series, all my operators are at least E1 level 1, except for the 2 stars who can't be E1. So I'm pretty strong throughout my whole roster there. So let's have a look at the first stage, Tulangmen. So the map itself is pretty good because we only need to defend 1 point on the right side. It's only 1 lane. And with the top lane being pretty narrow, we can probably have a bit of a earlier defense line. So 1 defense operator could be enough to defend all of this. The enemies themselves are also not that bad, except for the heavy defender. Everything else is pretty doable. So we might want to consider taking a caster with us to deal with the defender. The rest should fall with normal operators. Now let's have a look at the operators that I'm using. Since this is a marathon, we should use 2-star, 3-star operators first and save our 6 stars for the later stages. Now you're wondering probably why I have Texas in there. That's because her talent is active if she's in the squad. So she will give me additional DP at the start without her being deployed, so I can use her without losing her. She's just a spot in my squad that is filled. The rest, the 2-star and 3 stars, you probably all know because you all have them and rarely use them, and we'll see how this will go. Now I will speed up the recording and probably cut some stuff because I don't want to show the full stage if there's nothing happening. Okay, as I said earlier, I'm completely going in blind, so I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm thinking what I can do. I want to save my vanguards for later because I don't have that many, so I'll deploy a guard first and just let him cover everything with a ranger behind, just to deal out more damage and get rid of the enemies there. and that seems to work pretty well. Like my defender doesn't get much damage, and I just put one more caster in to fight against the heavy guard coming along. Now you see, once the heavy defender actually hits my defender, he loses quite a bit of health, and I need to deploy a medic here. He will not hold this on his own. He doesn't have self-sustain, and I don't want to lose him and lose a lot of health seals or maybe lose the whole stage. And since he's busy a lot with the heavy defender, I need to drop a Papuka behind him to have another damage dealer out that can also block and dish out some more damage. Now the rest of the stage is pretty uneventful. This line is holding and nothing is really coming through. Papuka is doing a lot of damage. I sometimes activate her skill just to make sure, but actually it wouldn't be needed. And it's probably even too strong of a defense line for the first stage, but I was a bit scared, to be honest. Now let's have a look at the results screen. I used 5 operators, so 5 operators are out for the rest of this challenge. I also want to introduce one more thing that I want to do, which is a score system for this. Basically, you want to have the lowest score possible. Deploying an operator gives you points based on the amount of stars. So Durin, 2 points. Hibiscus, 3 points. From 4 stars onwards, it's 1 point more. 4 star means 4 plus 1, 5 star means 5 plus 2, 6 star means 6 plus 3, because they're just stronger and can easily hold lines. Additionally, whenever an operator dies or is retreated, 1 point. And lastly, whenever an enemy goes through, 1 point. So what does that mean for us? First off, my operators that I deployed are 2, 2, 2, 3 and 3. Nobody died, no extra points. And no enemy got through, so no extra points. This results in an end score of 12 points for the first stage. Let's go on to the next one then. The next one is Slow 1. It is a similar map to the previous one, but instead of having the spawn point at the top left, it's now at the bottom, meaning more enemies will come from the bottom. And we have now a logger in here as well, so he will deal out more damage. After the previous one I feel more brave, so I didn't bump up my team too much and even took Castle 3 with me. Let's see if that was actually a mistake or not. After having a quick look at my team, I actually needed to stop here for a couple of seconds to come up with a plan of how I will proceed, and I decided that Midnight will be the first choice to be deployed. I think I need to have more damage than Beagle can dish out, and there'll be more coming out, so I just hope that he can hold the line for longer than normal, basically. And since already a couple of enemies coming from the bottom lane, I'm a bit worried now that he cannot block enough. So I'm currently waiting for this moment where a lot of enemies are coming, and then I'll decide who to deploy based on the enemies that appear, rather than just guessing it. To my surprise, Midnight actually held far longer than I anticipated, based on the initial enemies. So Ansel had to come out pretty late to heal him up. And he did manage to hold a very long time before 3 enemies are coming at the same time. So I threw out Beagle to help blocking, and since even more enemies are coming from down below, I also deploy Arknights. But there's actually a lot coming, so I'm pretty scared, and we're thinking of deploying 12F, but it seemed like they were holding, so luckily I decided against it. But then I saw a mistake in my lineup, since Ansel can't heal Beagle and everything kind of fall apart at that point. Which was unfortunate, but due to the fact that I went in blind. So in stage 2 I started with a false sense of security, which kinda hurt me in the end. I lost 5 operators again. I could have done it with way less if I would have planned it better, but it is what it is. So in terms of points, it's 2, 3, 3, 3 and 3. However, I did lose 2 operators, so 2 additional points, because Beagle and Midnight died. And 3 enemies got through, so 3 additional points. This results in a grand total of 22 points. Way too much for this stage, but let's roll with it and just go on with the next stage. War of Words is another variation of the same map basically, but this time around all the spawn points are open and we have way more enemies coming along. So after the previous one I decided to take Durna with me as a 4-star and Ethan as a 4-star, just to have a bit more security if something goes south again. So from the previous stages I figured I can bring Durna out first because I will get enough DP and the enemies are slow enough. She's actually a pretty strong defender, so I hope that she can hold the line pretty well, and the first hits on the hounds were pretty satisfying for me. I figured I can throw in Castle because why not, he does some extra damage. I probably won't use him in the future anyway, and it's just nice to have a bit more damage on the side. And now the point starts where I realize I messed up. Not only do I need to deploy a lot of operators because there's a lot coming, but now I also realize I don't have any medic, and Durna doesn't have self-sustain. So I'm pretty freaked out now and annoyed myself that I forgot to bring in a medic, not gonna lie. So I tried to keep it as fast as possible and just try to hold the line, but there's not much I can do. I desperately drop Vanilla and Catapult at the top to do something, but now snipers are coming and they just take down my bottom line, and I'll just try to get through the stage without dying. That's currently my most important point, because otherwise those operators are gone and I lose a lot of points for it. My main goal is just get through it. And with Cruise at the end and the skill from Catapult, at least I managed to kill enough that I have 1 seal left. Now, while I thought the previous stage was badly played from my side, this was an absolute train wreck of a stage. I lost nearly all of my operators, I used a lot of them, a lot were killed, and a lot of enemies went through. So in terms of points, that just goes up so high, and it would have been very easy to do it in a better manner, but for the next attempt, right guys? So let's have a look at the points. 3, 3, 5, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, 5, 3. So many points. Just as a reminder, a 4-star is 4 plus 1 because of the extra strength those operators have. On top of that, 7 extra points for killed operators. Rest in peace, my friends. And additionally, 4 points for enemies that went through. This leads to 42 points. I really messed that stage up. So the next stage, Slow 2, can only be better. Now there's only 1 choke point here and it will have flyers, so I take Vermile and I also take May with me, and I hope that this will be enough in combination with Milanta, who is a very strong guard, especially since I have her maxed out. And I have a lot of other stronger units in the back to help support if needed. Now this stage went way better than the other ones. It focused a lot on drones, so I immediately deploy May and Vermile, and they shoot away at a lot of this, and when the first Junkman is coming I put down Milanta, and with the combined strength of those damage dealer nothing really comes far. Even with those enemies that are hitting Milanta it's not much, and I'm certain I can hold with just her. If I would have even upgraded my 2 snipers higher, because they're only E1 level 1, it would probably be even way easier to do. Now Milanta does fall, but it doesn't really make sense to deploy anybody else, because only one will get through, which means only 1 point, and deploying an operator would be more points. Like I said, way better played from my side. In terms of deployment, it's 5, 3 and 5 points. It can probably be even lower with stronger snipers. Maybe only snipers would be enough, because they do a lot of damage and you probably can kill all of the ground enemies as well with the snipers when they're strong enough, so you can save points there. Milanta did fall, so 1 point for that, and 1 enemy got through, so 1 point for the enemies. This adds up to 15 points on this map, so we're getting the score low again. The next stage is Blockade 1. This and the following stages introduces the roadblocks, which is a mechanic for a lot of events and later stages in Arknights, and once you get the hang of it you can do a lot with this. So I'm pretty certain I can do this with only a couple of operators because I'm pretty familiar with the system by now. However, since I used most of my 3 stars up already, my squad is filled now with more 4 stars because, well, I can't do anything else about this. Now I start with creating the route that I want the enemies to take. So top, right, left and bottom, so they have to go the whole way around to get to the end. Next up I see it starts with slugs, and even more slugs are coming. So I wait for Gitano to do her AoE damage, and she can 2-shot all of those. So even if they come in great numbers, it doesn't really matter because she 2-shots them. Then when there are more enemies coming, I activate her skill to increase the attack speed and also deploy Cardigan, because after seeing the stage I figured this will be enough to get me through to this. However, there are a lot coming, so I deploy Haze, which is probably actually not needed, and in the end she will fall because the ranged characters will focus her. I probably could have avoided that by just not deploying her. Then I activate the skill from Gitano from time to time, and Cardigan cannot hold against the 2 loggers, but there's one trick you can do with roadblocks. By blocking in front of them and taking another piece away, they will go the whole way around back. Then I wait until he's close to the end and do the same way again. Gitano had enough time to get her skill ready, and then she fires away, and I'll just play around with the blocks to get the enemy to run in circles. Now this wasn't so bad. 13 points in deployment, which is pretty good, and I could have done that even lower. 2 points for losing operators, which can definitely be avoided, and it was just first time playing the stage and I wanted to figure out how to actually go in this. And no points for the enemies because no one got through. That means overall I have 15 points on this stage, which is totally fine. As I mentioned before, the stages continue with those blockage, and we will see the same map with different layouts that we can use. So I slightly adjusted my team because I needed to bring in 3 more people, but I think of going into the same strategy, even though there will be no slugs this time around, so I probably won't go into heavy AoE, but more into single target damage. Now once again I start with creating the path, so top right, then on the left side and in the bottom middle, so they have to go to the right side to get to the exit. And then I quickly think of who I want to deploy and how I want to build up my line. So I start with Gummy, because not many operators are coming, or not many enemies are coming, and she has a self-sustain. And I hope that with Stuart behind her, I can deal with all of it. Stuart is a amazing 3-star caster, because he has really great damage output for a 3-star. So I was holding him a bit back in the other stages because I wanted to bring him in last as my 3-star because he can do a lot. Especially against those shield guards, as you can see now. He can just do a lot of damage against those. So at this point I'm hoping that I can do the stage with 2, maybe 3 operators. Since there are coming more and I'm afraid that they break through, I think about deploying Gravel, but I actually want someone with more damage, so I go with 4 Estelle. Looking back, putting Estelle behind Gumi would have been a better choice, because now she takes the brute force of everybody, which is unnecessary actually. But it was a spot decision that I made, and it is what it is. Also, Estelle has a self-sustain. When she hits, she heals. So this is a complete self-sustained squad currently. Unfortunately, she does fall, but Stuart and Gummy managed to finish this stage on their own. Once again, this was a pretty good stage. I have 13 points in deployment. You can really see bringing in those 4 stars helps a lot. I mean, the stage is for recommended level 30, all of those operators are E1 level 1, so they are above the required level, and 4 stars usually have good talents, good skills that you can use, so they're usually the better operators. That's also why I gave them more points. 1 point for losing Estelle, which could have easily been avoided, but it is what it is. And 0 points for the enemies because no one got through. So in the end, that is 14 points for this stage. So let's have a look at the last stage for this video. It's a red stage, so a boss stage, even though there are no leaders in this chapter so far. But I figured that's a good endpoint for the first video. So I have a full 4-star squad. I do have 2 3-star operators left, which are Spot and Fang, but I don't plan to use any of those here, because I assume I need a heal. So Susuro will be my dedicated healer here, and I can't use Spot as self-sustain here, I guess. I try to block everybody on the right side, and I hope that I can do a lot with casters and guards there. So, as always, I will start with blocking exits, so I can decide where the enemies are coming from. Top, left and bottom will be closed, so they have to go to the right side. I deploy Courier, my first Vanguard actually, or not the first, but the first that I actually deployed at the start of the stage. And he will take care of the start and give me enough DP, because I think I need more operators than usual. So he can take care of the first enemies, he gives me DP, and then I deploy Utage. I haven't deployed her a lot, so I completely misread her skill and wasted it. And it actually sounds like a pretty cool skill, so I want to use her in the future a bit better, I guess. But she's good, she'll take care of a lot of enemies together with Courier, and I feel certain that I can hold it for now, so I deploy Grey instead of Susuro. The slow plus AoE is helpful to get a bit more control on my side, basically. Now I'm actually hoarding DP, but it is what it is. I might have done it without it. So I'll take away Courier and replace with Frostleaf, because Courier would die. And then I throw out Moose because there's way too many enemies coming, and unfortunately Utage dies. So a defender would probably be better here than 3 guards, what I planned to do at the beginning. But together with Susuro, they stay alive and I can out-heal most of it. Unfortunately Frostleaf dies, and for a second I nearly deployed Texas by mistake, and decided to just let those 2 through because I think I can hold the rest, and deploying an operator would only cost me points, and maybe the operator cannot even kill those 2. So with Sean and Earth Spirit I take way more control over the top. The pushback gives me enough time to kill the enemies, so Moose 2 block is enough to hold the line, and Earth Spirit slow is helping. And with that I get through this stage. So this stage took out a lot of my operators. I need to deploy 8 4-stars, which means 40 points for this stage only for deployment. On top of that, I lost a couple of operators. So 3 additional points for that. And 2 enemies got through, so 2 additional points. That leaves me with 45 points for this stage. Quite a lot, but I think I did well given the circumstances. So we started out with 127 operators, and now we're down to 90. I've done 7 out of those 22 stages, so this is getting a bit rough now. I need to complete 15 more stages, and on average I can take 6 operators with me, and there will be a bit tougher stages. Obviously my 6-star operators most of them can hold something on their own, but casters, for example, maybe not so much. Medics, not at all. And I also have 2 1-star robots left. So tune in to the next episode to see how I continue to deal with all of that. And with this, I see you next time, Doctors.